So I recently just pulled rostership data for 1,700 real Dynasty leagues on myfantasyleague.com, and I am shocked at the number of teams that still roster Kadarius Toney. Like, what else do you need to see or not see to show you that Kadarius Toney is not a player that the Chiefs even want? So why should you want him on your Dynasty roster, just wasting space when you could use that roster spot for someone with actual upside? On top of that, Skyy Moore is in the same boat. Do not roster Skyy Moore on your teams anymore. Grieve the loss of what could have been from a promising prospect and then cut him from your teams because, again, Kansas City doesn't even want him, which is why it would take about 3 injuries for Moore to even see the field. So why should you want him on your Dynasty teams anymore? Speaking of injuries, he was already a roster clogger before getting hurt, but now he's even more so that he is injured. And I'm sorry to do it to you, Rondale Moore, but in 3 seasons and 51 possible games, he's either not played or failed to eclipse 35 receiving yards in 39 of those 51 games. But there is cause for celebration soon as we are coming up quickly on Rondale's 3-year anniversary on September 19th of his first and only 100-yard game. Oh, but here's a player who hasn't broken 100 yards in quite some time. Michael Thomas has not broken the century mark since December 6th, 2020. And actually, since that game has only played in 14 total games in 3 seasons. Not to mention the fact that he is still currently a free agent and turns 32 in just a couple months. I don't see a point in rostering him anymore, and it's time to move on from Michael Thomas. But you know who else is time to move on from? Another soon-to-be 32-year-old in Odell Beckham Jr. Yep, I said it. You can cut OBJ in Dynasty leagues because he's just a roster clogger. At least he's currently signed to a team right now, unlike Michael Thomas, but Odell Beckham Jr. is currently on the PUP, and there have been 0 indications that he is progressing through his injury to the point where Tua has come out and said that OBJ still isn't even running routes. And when/if he does get healthy, do we even want the at best third option on the Dolphins behind Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle? And third option really is being generous here, considering the running backs that they have, Jonnu Smith now at tight end, Malik Washington and Braxton Berrios as slot receivers. You might honestly be able to sell OBJ for like a 4th rather than cut him because of name value, but if he's still on the PUP when the season starts, I'm cutting him from my Dynasty teams. Sticking in the same division in the AFC East, there are 2 more receivers from the Buffalo Bills that I'm giving you permission to drop. The first one is very easy. It's Chase Claypool because he himself just got cut by the Buffalo Bills a few days ago. So if he can't even make the team in Buffalo without Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, on what team would he possibly make an impact for? And the other is still on the team, for now maybe, but you can also cut Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Listen, if you can't be fantasy relevant at all as the wide receiver 2 for Patrick Mahomes over the past couple years, then how can I believe you're going to be fantasy relevant for anyone else? Even Josh Allen. Even without Diggs and Gabe Davis there, MVS is at best, like the 4th best receiver on the team? Actually, he's probably 5th because Matt Collins is there too. So yeah, I don't care about Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and you can drop him from your Dynasty teams. All right, let's shake up the order a little bit and just rapid fire a few names that I noticed are still rostered in like 40+% of MFL leagues, but 2 of these guys actually retired this year, and the other 2 are aging free agents, and that's Michael Gallup, Darren Waller, Dalvin Cook, and Kareem Hunt. If you have any 4 of them on your team, you can go ahead and cut them because I see no point in rostering old, unemployed, and even retired players that weren't even that good when they most recently played either. Cut them. Now, speaking of old and not good anymore, and probably should retire, but is currently on an NFL roster, you can cut Allen Robinson, who, if you didn't know, is on the New York Giants and did catch a pass in the preseason last week, but Allen Robinson is cooked, probably beyond cooked. I mean, in 2022, he averaged 8.5 points per game with the Rams, and then last year on the Steelers, averaged a putrid 3.5 points per game as like the wide receiver 2 or 3 for a decent portion of the year last year. Now he's about to be 31. He's again at best the wide receiver 3 on his own team in a worse offense than Pittsburgh last year somehow. So cut him and let someone else pick him up and waste a roster spot. You know, we haven't touched on many running backs, so let's go to Cam Akers, which I think I just completely missed the news that he signed with Houston a few weeks ago, so very good for him. But what is the point in rostering him? I mean, I'm all for rostering handcuffs and will not even shy away from rostering a team's RB3 if I think they have a shot, but Cam Akers does not have a shot. He is so clearly behind Dameon Pierce as the team's RB2, and even Dare Ogunbowale has more juice than Akers right now. It is sad that we're at this point with a player who had so much potential before a devastating injury, but this is where we're at, and it's time to cut Cam Akers. The other running back that I want to cut if you're still holding on is Israel Abanikanda of the New York Jets. I get why you might have held on after the NFL draft when the Jets literally took 2 backup running backs on day 3. There was still a hope that Izzy could hold on to the RB2 role behind Breece Hall, but that hope is all gone. Braylon Allen is just so much better of a running back and rightfully has been getting all kinds of hype as the solidified RB2 on the team. And then there's also Isaiah Davis, who had a very good preseason game last week as a receiver out of the backfield. So there's really just nowhere for Abanikanda to be on this team. I wouldn't honestly be surprised if he gets demoted to the practice squad or even cut by the end of training camp, which means that you can also cut him too. All right, let's group the last 6 names because they're all depth receivers on their own teams who need a ton of things to happen to even see the field, let alone be productive. Yet they're all still decently rostered on MFL Dynasty leagues. Alec Pierce, John Mechie, Terrace Marshall, Kayshon Boutte, Tyquan Thornton, and Tre Tucker. I think most of those guys are no-brainers as to why they should be cut, but I bet you heard 2 names in that grouping that might give you a little bit of pause. The first, Alec Pierce, you can cut because he will effectively be replaced by Adonai Mitchell as the main outside receiver with Michael Pittman. The only thing even keeping him semi-relevant right now is the Josh Downs injury, so maybe you can flip him for a 4th or even a 3rd before Downs gets back, but I just see no point in keeping a guy who was so irrelevant in a massive snap percentage role last year, just running wind sprints on the field constantly. And his situation is worse for 2024 and beyond with Adonai Mitchell there now. So I'm going to cut him unless you can get like any future rookie pick for him. The second is Tre Tucker. And yes, he is the wide receiver 3 for the Vegas Raiders behind Devontae Adams and Jakobi Meyers. The preseason game proved that with his snap share with the starters. But to be honest, I just really don't care. He's going to have to compete with Adams, Myers, and Brock Bowers for targets when he does get on the field. And not to mention that the kid is 5'8", 182 pounds. He is tiny, but really, really fast. And that's great for Vegas and for their offense and special teams. But for fantasy football, I just don't care. And I'd rather use that roster spot for a handcuff running back or someone I actually think I'll play in my lineup at any point during the season, not Tre Tucker. Again, if you think that you can flip him for any future rookie pick, then do that instead of drop him. But if he makes it into the season and you haven't been able to flip him yet, I'm willing to cut him. So there you have it, 20 players that are clogging your Dynasty rosters that you can cut today, right now. But if you want to see a handful of players that you should be adding off of waiver wires to replace these guys, you can check out this video right up here.